I'm getting older, I need something to rely on. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, that's going. This could be the end of everything. Somewhere only we know. Okay, is this loaded? That should be. Okay, let's get this going. Be the everything. Do 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 do. I am setting up this stream to go on my computer so that I can make breakfast. But well, what I'm doing, I'm setting it up. If I live stream through my computer, it will send to Instagram. Oh, Instagram. I'm looking at the wrong phone. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. It sends to all of those instead of just to Instagram. So that way other people can watch. So that's what I was setting up. But on my walks, I only send to Instagram. Do 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 do. Is this loading or what? What's going on here? Okay. Okay, that's going. This reel. How's this reel doing? It's doing okay.
Free time.
That's fine. Okay, so that's good. Time for breakfast. And make sure this is working okay. I think it is. So we're also gonna do this thing now and this thing now. Yeah, so if you miss the live streams, if you miss when I stream, I don't do it on Instagram anymore, but if you go to YouTube, Facebook, but YouTube, you can watch the whole live stream later. It saves them. But I don't do it on Instagram. Okay, so time to eat. Make us some food. How do we want to do this? I wonder if I just want to do it this way today. Do it differently than how I have been doing it. What does it look like if I do this? I've never done it this way. I just shove it right in my face. So I'm looking to see what it looks like if I do that. That's kind of fun, I guess. Looks very yellow. Okay. Oh, that's bad. We need to figure out something with that light. Well, that's what it is. Okay. This should be, oh, let's get this out on top. Okay, let's see how the seasoning works. I finally seasoned the pan, so we're gonna see if it works. It looks kind of weird, but we're gonna see if it makes eggs better today. We are going to find out. Oh, let's get some Alan Watts going while we're doing that. Do 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 do. Okay. So okay. YouTube. Let's see what this sounds like.
I wonder if it's ever struck you how curious a thing it is that most of the things that we experience, we regard as things that happen to us, which we ourselves do not originate, which are events expressing some sort of power or activity that is external to ourselves. And if you consider that, you realize that what you mean by yourself is rather narrowly circumscribed. Even events that go on in our own bodies are put in the category of things that happen to us in the same way as things that go on in the world outside our skins. If there's a thunderstorm or an earthquake,
I do live alone. Yeah. Yep. For now. I've lived with people, and I've lived with my family, and I've lived with my partners, and all the different things. Right now, I live alone. Living with family can be good. Everything has pluses and minuses. Like good things, bad things. Pros and cons, as they say. I watch the world and you've seen the difference and it's getting better. Okay.
happens to you. You're not responsible for it. And so in the same way, when you have hiccups, you didn't plan on it. If you have belly rumbles, you had no intention of doing it. And as to the catastrophic act of getting born, well, you had nothing to do with that. And you can spend all your life blaming your parents for putting you in the situation in which you find yourself. And this way of looking at the world in this sort of passive mood as something that happens to you goes right down to our general feeling about life. It goes down to the way in which, as Westerners, we have been accustomed to look at human existence as a precarious event in a cosmos that, on the whole, is depicted as being completely unsympathetic and alien to our existence. In other words, if you are reared with a 20th century, or shall we say an early 20th century common sense, which is based on the philosophy of science of the 19th century, with its rejection of Christianity and Judaism, you regard yourself as an accident, a biological accident, in a stupid universe, which is mechanical, but has no feelings, no finer feelings. a vast, pointless gyration of radioactive rocks and gas in which you happen to occur. Of course, if you don't have that point of view and you are more traditional, you look upon yourself as a child of God. And therefore, under authority. In other words, there's a big boss on top of all this who allowed you, at his pleasure, to deign to have the disgusting effrontery to exist. And you better watch your P's and Q's, because that Almighty is looking after you with the attitude of this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. And when you look at the world in that image, or in the other image, that it's a stupid mechanism, either point of view you take, you don't really belong. You're not really part of all this. And I could use a stronger word than part, only we don't have it in English. We have to say something like connected with...
The color of these eggs is so different. These are the organic grass-fed ones. These are the non-organic ones. Non-pasture raised. Look how different the color is between these and these. Quality and how it's, I don't know, it matters. It matters.
Essential to it, or to put it in the strongest possible way, it is quite alien to Western thought to conceive that the external world, which is defined as something that happens to you, and your body itself is something that you got caught up with, it is quite alien to our thought to consider all that as you yourself. Because you see, we have such a myopic view of what oneself is. It's as if, in other words, we selected how much experience is really to be regarded as me. As if you focused your attention on certain restricted areas of the whole panorama of things that you experience, and say, I will take sides with that much of it. Now, we come here right at the start to an extremely important principle, which is the different points of view you get when you change your level of magnification. That is to say, you can look at something with a microscope and see it a certain way. You can look at it with the naked eye and see it in a certain way. You look at it with a telescope and you see it in another way. Now, which level of magnification is the correct one? Well, obviously, they're all correct. They're just different points of view. You can, for example, look at a newspaper photograph under a magnifying glass, and where with the naked eye you will see a human face, with the magnifying glass you will just see a profusion of dots, rather meaninglessly scattered. But as you stand away from that collection of dots, which all seem to be separate and apart from each other, they suddenly arrange themselves into a pattern. And you see that these individual dots add up to some kind of sense. Now you'll see at once from this illustration that maybe you, when you take a myopic view of yourself, as most of us do, but you may add up to some kind of sense that is not apparent to you in your ordinary consciousness. When we examine our bloodstreams under a microscope, we see there's one hell of a fight going on.
I tried seasoning this pan and this seems worse than when it was non-seasoned. I'm not sure about this whole seasoning pans thing, if this is what it's going to be like. This is definitely worse than an unseasoned pan, which is a real bummer. I'm learning so many things. Also, these eggs blow. These non-organic ones. They're just like goopy. Goopy. Like they're not even the same color of yellow. Let's see how much I can complain today.
All sorts of microorganisms are chewing each other up. And if we got overly fascinated with our view of our own bloodstreams in the microscope, we could start taking sides, which would be fatal, because the health of our organism depends on the continuance of this battle. What is, in other words, conflict at one level of magnification is harmony at a higher level. Now, could it possibly be, therefore, that we, with all our problems, conflicts, neuroses, sicknesses, political outrages, wars, tortures, and everything that goes on in human life, are a state of conflict which can be seen in a larger perspective as a situation of harmony?
Isn't that a weird idea? That conflict zoomed out on actually is harmony. Of all the bacteria, fighting in an organism actually makes the organism what it is. And then the idea, if you zoom out of humanity, all of our conflicts, person to person, or nation to nation, or tribe to tribe, is actually a harmony. It's kind of weird to think about.
This claim, you see, that some human beings have broken through to that vision, that they've slipped somehow or other into states of consciousness where they see the apparent disintegration and disorganization of everyday life as the functioning of a totality which at its level is completely harmonious. And you could say, aha, at last I see, I got the point. I've seen how all this makes sense. But what this insight depended upon was your overcoming the illusion that space separates things.
What a disaster this is.
That is to say, the space, the interval between your body and mine.
Seasoning pans is bullshit. Seasoning pans is bullshit. This was so much better before I tried seasoning this. This is a disaster. I'm about to scrape it all back down and start again. This is a disaster. There's shit all over the fucking place. I just put this in the oven 2 different times at 475 degrees. Why would anyone want their pans to be like this? No wonder people don't like cast iron. This was so much better before. Fuck seasoning. Seasoning is a scam. Seasoning is a scam. What a disaster. It's like just chunks of stuff here. Seasoning is a scam. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe it. It's a scam. You just clean your pans. This is disgusting, the difference. I've never, like, there's so much gunk in here. It's unbelievable. Okay, I just can't even, well, obviously, I just can't even believe how, whatever. Wow, what a disappointment.
By birth at one end and death
I guess.
at the other. and then after somebody's death, then somebody else's birth.
I'm so frustrated because I worked on this pan. I cleaned this whole thing. It used to be so rusty. And then the past few days, I got really good at using it. And so when I would finish, well, I'd cleaned it out. When I finish, it would be totally clean. Now when I just tried making eggs, I couldn't even scrape all the stuff out of there. When I tried to do it the way the internet told me to do it. So I'm going back to my old way. And we're not going to season pans anymore. I think it seems like that's a scam. And also, it's like no wonder people don't like using cast iron pans if it's that hard to clean. Like, I wouldn't want to use a pan like that.
These are events with intervals between them. And normally we regard these intervals in time and these intervals in space as having no importance, no function. We tend to see the universe itself as really consisting in all the stars and galaxies. That's what it is. That's what we notice. But the space in which all this happens is sort of written off as something that isn't really there. But what one has to realize is that the space is an essential function of the things in the space. After all, you can't have separate stars unless there is a space around. Eliminate the space and you will see you couldn't have this phenomenon at all. And vice versa. You couldn't have the space. They wouldn't be there in any sense whatsoever if there weren't the bodies in it. So the bodies in the space and the space are two aspects of a single continuum. They're related together in exactly the same way as a...
This doesn't look that great, but that's the eggs for today. Egg salsa, a tiny little bit of barbecue sauce. Actually, I guess I can eat over here. Why don't we do that?
front. And you just don't get one without the other. So the moment you see that intervals, that space is connective, you can understand at once how you are not just to be exclusively defined as a flash of consciousness that occurs between two eternal darknesses, which is the popular common sense view which Western man has of his own life. That you consider that in the darkness that comes before your birth, there was no you, and in the eternal darkness that follows your death, there is likewise no you. And I'm going to discuss these matters not by appealing to any special spooky knowledge, as if I had been traveling on the higher planes and knew all my previous incarnations and therefore could tell you authoritatively that you are much more than this individuality. I'm going to do it on a basis of complete common sense, that everybody has access to the facts. And that just what you have to realize is that life is a pattern of immense complexity. And what you call yourself as a living organism, say, I am my whole body at the very least. Now what is that body? That body is recognizable, and I recognize my friends when I meet them again, with luck, and you recognize me. Although the last time any of you saw me, I was absolutely something entirely different from what I am now. Just as the flame of a candle is never a constant. The flame of a candle is a stream of hot gas. Only you say the flame of the candle as if it were a constant. Well, it is a recognizably constant pattern. The spear-shaped outline of the flame and its coloration is a constant pattern. But in exactly the same way, we are all constant patterns. And that's all we are. The only thing constant about us at all is the doing rather than the being. It's the way we behave, the way we dance. Only there's no we that dances. There's just the dancing. Just as the flame is the streaming of hot gas, just as a whirlpool in a river is a whirling of streaming water. There is no thing that whirlpools. There is the whirlpool, and in the same way, each one of us is a very, very delightfully complex undulation of the energy of the whole universe. Only by our process of miseducation, we've been deprived of the knowledge of that fact, not as if there was someone to blame for this, because it's always with our own tacit consent. Because life is basically a game of hide and seek. Because life is pulsation, on and off. Here it is, and now it isn't. And by being this pulsation, we know it's there. See, you don't know what you mean by on unless you know what you mean by off. That's why when we want to awaken someone, we knock at the door. It's not enough to slam the door once with your fist and make a big noise, but you keep up a pulsation, because that by its on and offness attracts attention. All life, you see, is this flickering in and out. Only there are enormous rhythms in it. There are very fast flickering ins and outs, like the reaction of light upon our eyes, such that if I take a lighted cigarette in the dark and I spin it, you will see a circle of fire. Because the reflection of that cigarette tip on your retina lasts, it endures. Just in the same way as on a radar screen. An image stays a little while until it's revivified by another round. So in that way, you see, you notice continuity. And in the same way then, you notice the continuity of the light, because although, like say, with an arc lamp is actually a flickering light. And that's why they don't allow arc lights to be used in any shop where there's a circular saw moving. Because sometimes the flickering speed of the arc light so synchronizes with the turning speed of the teeth on the blade that the teeth look as if they're not moving. And so anybody who might put his hand on the blade would have it chopped off, thinking it was a still one. So in this way, very fast impulses are looked upon us as constant. And we see where there are fast impulses a solid thing. When you look at the blade of a propeller or an electric fan, the separated 4 or 3 blades become a solid disc, and you cannot throw an egg through it. Well, so in exactly the same way, you can't put your finger through a rock, because the rock is moving too fast for your finger to go through. That's the meaning of the whole phenomenon.
I need to pause this. I got a message that I need to respond to. Guess there's not anything to respond to there.
Hardness.
I'm looking at my face right now. Because I'm very self-involved, apparently. Okay. food stuff. I'm so bummed about this pan and how sticky it was. Like, I can't even believe it. I can't even believe it.
In nature is immense energy, but acting in a very concentrated space, restricted space, but going to be hell. That's why you can't get through it. Now, from those very tiny fast rhythms, which give us
Oops. Why isn't this working?
of continuity, there are also in this universe immensely slow rhythms. And these are very difficult for us to keep track of. And they impress us and depress us as our own life and death, as our coming and going, which goes for what is to us such a slow pace that we can't possibly believe that it is really a rhythm. We think of it as our birth.
I cannot believe this.
That could never occur again, because we're so close to it, and it's moving so slowly.
What a disaster.
And so, with that point of view, we are, like Marshall McLuhan said, he borrowed a metaphor from me, which is that we are driving a car looking at the rear vision mirror. That means that the environment in which you believe yourself to exist is always a past. It isn't the one you're actually in. The process of growth, the basic process of biology, is one in which lower orders are always being superseded by higher orders.
What a disaster.
The lower order
I just can't
never
even...
figure out, or only very rarely figure out what the higher order is that's taking over. And they see it as a terrible trend, as total disaster, as the very end. But they can never be aware that the principle of growth always has and always will continue. Because that's what's going on. But you never know what the next step is going to be. Because if you did know, you wouldn't take it. Because it would already be past. Do you understand this? That any certainly known future is an event of which we can say you had it. And in that sense, it's past.
I'm never doing that again.
Games, and we say in chess or in bridge or whatever game you're playing, the outcome of the game becomes certain. We at that point cancel the game and begin a new one. Because the whole zest of the thing, which takes me back to the idea that this whole thing is a hide and seek game, is that you don't know what the next order coming up is. But one thing you can be sure of, it will be an order, and it will comprehend you. At the moment we stand at a time in history where we're beginning to think of the great countdown on the end of the human race. Terrifying possibility that through atomic energy we may obliterate this planet and turn the whole globe into a star. Maybe that's the way all the stars started. Imagine, this great thing coming up. The countdown on the end. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Where have you heard that before? You sit on the seashore. And you hear the waves going in and out. And you don't stop to think. That's what you're doing. That's what the whole business is doing. And there are places where the wave mounts and mounts and it gets too big for its boots or whatever and it spills and breaks. And we could do just that. But very important to realize that that's what you're doing, because then you don't get panicky about it. And the person who's going to press that button is the person who's going to be in panic. So if you realize that that's what it is,
I'm so bummed.
It doesn't really matter if the whole human race blows itself up. Then there's a chance that it won't do it. That's the only chance we have. Not to do this thing which attracts us, like a kind of vertigo, like a person who looks over a precipice and is all set to throw himself over. Or a person who jumps out of a plane when they're skydiving and forgets to pull the parachute ring because he gets fascinated with a target. It's called target fascination. He just goes straight at it, you see. So we can get absolutely fascinated with disaster, with doom. Or, all the news in the newspapers is invariably bad news. There is no good news in the newspapers. People wouldn't buy a newspaper consisting of good news. Even the free press is full of terrible news. Except the San Francisco Oracle. And the fascination, you see, for this doom might be neutralized if we would say, well, why bother about that? It's just another fluctuation in this huge, marvelous, endless chain of our own selves and our own energy going on. See, here's the problem. Because of our myopia, because of the way we've, as it were, restricted consciousness to focus upon just that certain little area of experience that we call voluntary action. That's us. And everything else happens to us. Now that's obviously absurd. Let's suppose you take in your hand one of those toys, a gyroscopic top. And you suddenly notice, the minute you get this in your hand, that it has a kind of vitality to it. It seems to resist you. It starts pushing you in a certain way, see? And sometimes you're with it and following it. Then sometimes you see it, it's just as if you held a living animal in your hand. You pick up a hamster, or a guinea pig. And you hold this little thing in your hand, it's always trying to escape. So the gyroscope always seems to be trying to escape your hold. Now in exactly the same way, what you're experiencing all the time, all sorts of things are getting out of control and doing things you don't expect. It's trying to escape your hold. All right, then don't grab it so hard. And you discover that this living thing that you're feeling, like the gyroscope top, it's your own life. Because you can see very simply that you would not understand the experience that you call voluntary action and decision, being in control and being yourself, unless in opposition to that there was something else. You couldn't realize self and control and will unless there was something other, out of control, and instead of will, won't. It's the two together only that produces the sensation that you call having a personal identity. Only, there is a funny thing about human consciousness which has been worked out very carefully in Gestalt psychology, which is that our attention is captured by the figure rather than the background, by the relatively enclosed area rather than the diffuse area, and by something moving rather than what is relatively still. And to all those phenomena that in this way attract our attention, we attribute a higher degree of reality than the ones we don't notice. That's only because, for the moment, those are more important to us. Consciousness, you see, is a radar that is scanning the environment to look out for trouble. just in the same way as a ship's radar is looking for rocks or other ships. And the radar, therefore, does not notice the vast areas of space where there are no rocks.
All right, let's try and do this real quick. I'm so frustrated about this damn pan. It's just so gross now. Like, it was so clean, and I thought it would be better by seasoning it, and it just is not. All right. What are you saying wow to? The pan? Or what? I don't know. I get so annoyed. I spent days and days and days, not days and days, I spent hours and hours, over days, trying to make it good. And so it's just so frustrating to have it. Well, also, and it was good. I was using it while I was cleaning it, and it was getting better and better and better and better. And then it's like painting a beautiful painting. It's not like this probably, but it's like, it feels like painting a beautiful painting, and then you accidentally did one stroke too much, and then you ruined the whole painting. That's what I feel like right now. Anyway, all right, let's move on from that. Eating good things is done. Okay. Let's see here. I guess we can get on to set a direction. What is this to? Okay. What are those? Those are so weird. Hi, Miriam. Okay. I guess it's time to set a direction. She's gonna be here soon. The other lady, the mom, her mom has her right now, and she'll be coming over soon. Yeah. How are you today? Oh, I missed your how are you today. I don't know how I am today. I guess all over the place. I guess all over the place is what I am, but I'm here. Anyway, how are you today? I'm not tired. I'm not tired particularly, I don't think today. I'm just a little... Definitely having feelings. Definitely having feelings. I don't know what it's about. I mean, maybe I don't know. I really wanted to try and go to the gym, and maybe I still will. Once the puppy gets here, I was trying to go before, but I thought the puppy would be here by now, so I didn't make it. I'm really frustrated, and I'm trying not to be, and I guess I'm just trying to take it as it comes. I was working on this cast iron pan let's see if this shows. I was working on this cast iron pan, and I cleaned it out so good, and I started seasoning it last night, and I seasoned it again today. And when I tried to make eggs today, it was the worst it's been out of any of the times. Like, it left chunks of the eggs down. It was so bad. It was so sticky, and I can't even get them out. And I'm like, I don't know. So I think seasoning is a scam. I think it's a scam because when I just cleaned it out to its actual good surface, it worked great. Like, it worked great. And it was just so frustrating. Oh, is this still working? I don't even know if it's working right now. Did I mess up? Is the internet not working? And now the internet's not working. Is it working on Restream maybe? This? I don't even know. I don't know if this is not working or what.
$7.4 million in sales from the Yap Challenge in the last 10 weeks, and I've signed over 6 figures in brand deals in the last couple of weeks here.